On today's episode of the Locked On NHL podcast, trouble in Matthew Tkachuk land, and we have suspensions to discuss.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into another episode of the Locked On NHL podcast. We are your daily NHL podcast, and we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team each and every day, and we thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen each and every day. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. On today's episode of Locked On NHL, we'll get an update on Matthew Tkachuk's injury status off of the Nations Faceoff. Might be a little bit until we see Matthew Tkachuk for the Florida Panthers. We'll also take a look at Alex Ovechkin continuing to close the gap with the great one in the goals department. And we've got a suspension that was handed out and a suspension that was reduced to discuss here today as well. My name is Seth Topal, host of Locked On Wild, joined by JD Young of Locked On Sharks. And JD, we'll hit the ground running here. Obviously, one of the big storylines from the Nations Faceoff was the health of both Brady and Matthew Tkachuk in the championship against Canada, because those two could basically barely walk by the time the game was done. They tried to gut it out and play. Ultimately, Team Canada won the whole thing. Team USA, they got the bragging rights win earlier in the tournament, but then couldn't seal the deal. Before we dive in and discuss, let's hear from Armando Velez, who has an update on Matthew Tkachuk's status now that we're back to the games here.
Matthew Tkachuk's season not over. What is up, guys? Armando Velez here from the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, here to bring you the news on the star forward. Paul Maurice went on the Joe Rose show this morning to discuss the situation and said that the injury is not season-ending for Tkachuk. And Matthew Tkachuk got injured in the first USA versus Canada game on February 15th. Took himself out of the game halfway through the third period. Tried giving it a go in their rematch in the championship of the Four Nations final. Unfortunately, could not finish that game. And it was expected that Matthew Tkachuk was going to miss some time, but it's not going to be to the end of the regular season. Now, what does this mean for the Florida Panthers on who steps up, who fills in for the rest of the season, and how the Florida Panthers go from here at the trade deadline? We're going to discuss that more on tomorrow's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, your team every day.
Big thank you to Armando Velez for that update on Tkachuk's status. And if you want to hear more on the status of Matthew Tkachuk, make sure to check out Locked On Florida Panthers each and every day. JD, let's talk about this a little bit, because Tkachuk is a big enough piece to what the Florida Panthers are trying to do, but it's not as though he is the only thing that that makes the wheel turn for the Panthers. I'm not trying to suggest that his injury won't be felt, but that is a deep Florida Panthers team that has the potential to be able to at least mitigate this.
Yeah, and right, you know, like Matthew Tkachuk, big part of this team. I know he's not the captain, but I feel like he's kind of, Barkov's the captain. It feels like Tkachuk is very much kind of the soul of the team, right? And as Tkachuk goes, the Florida Panthers go. And they went out and got him to kind of help bring that identity and that kind of toughness, that mental attitude. And also, he's pretty good at hockey last time I checked as well. So, yes, they have plenty of pieces, and you wonder if they might go full Vegas on us with the LTIR, see if they can, they were a very close cap team as it is. You put him on LTIR until the end of the regular season, then you bring him back for the playoffs, and with whatever shiny new piece you can go acquire at the deadline, potentially there. I do think that they'll be okay for the rest of the regular season, right? With Barkov and Reinhardt and Verhaeghe, who always is Sam, but like they have enough guys around where I think they'll be okay. I do groin injuries, which is kind of the expected what this is. They worry me so much, right? And like you look at players who've suffered groin injuries, and Sharks fans know 2018, 2019, Erik Karlsson was having an amazing start to the season, hurts his groin in January, and tries to kind of work his way back, doesn't. Never just wasn't fully healthy in the playoffs. And that's what worries about me, because they have to be like, they're so easy to have a setback with these. And I know Kirill Kaprizov, right? Same thing. Groin injuries, they worry me. So even if he does get back for the playoffs, and that's 2 months away right now, is he going to be full 100% Matthew Tkachuk for a team that is looking to repeat and is looking to get back to Stanley Cup Finals for the third year in a row? It's a lot of wear and tear, and I worry about groins.
Yeah, and you have to be so careful to just resist the urge to bring somebody back before they're fully ready, because you need the help to get into the playoffs. And again, this is a Panthers team that is pretty deep, to say the least. So I think I don't think they're in any danger of, falling out of the playoff picture or anything like that. But it is one of those, like we've talked about it on this show with the Colorado Avalanche without Gabe Landeskog in the lineup, where it's still a good Panthers team, but they just don't have that same gear. That they had with that particular player in the lineup. So it's going to be all about, and I think Paul Maurice is probably the perfect coach to navigate them through this, because he's so good at navigating adversity. I mean, think about what happened a couple of years ago with this team, where they were basically dead in the water, and all of a sudden the switch flipped. Like he is good at navigating treacherous waters. So that's a good position to be in. But again, if you bring him back too early and it flares up, then all of a sudden it's like, well, now he is done for the season.
Or even it's not even bringing it back if you start ramping them up too early, right?
Yeah.
And you see guys have setbacks for this all the time because they feel good one day, and it's like, okay, let me try to push it a little bit more today. And then all of a sudden you're back at square one because it flares up again. And that's what worries me about this. And, we saw Tkachuk in the Four Nations try to gut it out a little bit. And he just wasn't the same guy, right? And I think between not having both Tkachuk's healthy and, of course, Quinn Hughes not being available, I think that was a huge reason why U.S. lost the Four Nations to Canada. And it worries me with a groin injury and with the Panthers, who have aspirations. Like, this team is one of the teams that you could see be there at the end of the season, because again, how deep they are. They have talent up and down the roster. They have elite talent up and down the roster. But if you don't have Matthew Tkachuk, and I know this East team is this Eastern Conference is a hot mess, especially in the wild card. But still, that is a huge gauntlet to try to get through without Matthew Tkachuk. And even if you're 80% Matthew Tkachuk, like, is that enough for you? Like, what's the percentage of Matthew Tkachuk do you need before you feel like, okay, we got a legitimate chance at this?
Well, and the other thing that you can't really account for as well is any sort of like awkward movements, to where, you practice a particular way to get yourself back in game shape, but there is so much movement that is just awkward, is really the only way that I can think of to put it, where you maybe skate to try to avoid a check and all of a sudden it flares up, or it's all of the unexpected movement that is the stuff that you have to worry about.
Push off a little too hard or whatever it is. So I do wonder, like, I'm sure Armando will go into, like, if they do try to go the LTIR route here, the Panthers don't have any picks this year, of course, because they've traded all those picks away. But next year they do have their first round pick and what's supposed to be a really good draft class. Do you think maybe they go big game hunting to try to find the replacement for Matthew Tkachuk, especially just saying, like, you know what? Enjoy the next 2 months off. We feel we're second, in the division right now. We feel like we're going to be in the playoffs. enjoy the 2 months off. We'll see you mid-April. Let's go get somebody who can go help. And I mean, I know it's not the sexiest trade deadline class, but right? Like, how often do teams have a chance to repeat?
Yeah, and I mean, you know, a guy who it seems like is more likely to be traded with how they have played as of late. Maybe you go out and you get a Brock Besser or something like that you can put on your books. It's not going to cost you a ton in terms of cap. That they would slot in obviously well under what Tkachuk's cap hit would be if he were put on LTIR. So maybe you go that route. It
Old
certainly
man
is
Brock
a possibility.
What's Cam Fowler doing?
Winning,
of course. Yes.
Yeah, naturally.
Yeah. This could be you again. If Matthew Tkachuk is healthy by the playoffs, and this actually gives them the flexibility to go out and get a big piece. This could be like one of those silver lining things where like everything worked out in the end for them, as long as Matthew Tkachuk can get back to being Matthew Tkachuk. But 2 months, hopefully, like they're able to, you know, like just rest, buddy. We got plenty of guys who can kind of pick up the slack. We can be aggressive, you know, and luckily it happened now and not like a week after the trade deadline where you're kind of stuck with who you have. And, you know, there's, you know, we're under 2 weeks until the trade deadline. I would expect now the Panthers to be super aggressive to try to go add something else, especially if they feel like Matthew Tkachuk's best option is just to wait until the playoffs. So go full Vegas. I don't care anymore. Just do it.
I have been saying that I think the Wild should go that route, but knowing the Wilds, that would be the team that Gary Bettman would penalize for doing it.
Why do the Sens lose their first round pick for some reason?
Yeah.
The Sens are going to lose their first round pick out of this.
I'm seeing here on Puckpedia that the Ottawa Senators lost a first round pick. What happens?
I don't know.
The Minnesota Wild tried to exploit a salary cap loophole, and the Senators paid the price for it. It's just how it works. Speaking of just how it works, Alex Ovechkin just continues to score goals. I saw a post on X by Big Head Hockey that gave me a panic attack because they listed visually every goal that he has scored. Way too long of a
you
post.
Got to pay for that.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll talk about Alex Ovechkin's continued chase for the most goals in NHL history. And we'll get an update from Dan Holme of Locked On Capitals as well. That's coming up on today's episode of Locked On NHL after this. Today's episode of Locked On NHL is brought to you by Indeed. You just realized your business needed to hire somebody yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? It's easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster, such as myself. When I was on the job hunt over the summer, went to Indeed on a daily basis. And some of the features that I love about Indeed include their ability to match your skills to the requirements for a particular job. They can just weed out a bunch of different possibilities that maybe don't fit what you're looking for, and makes it so easy to find the inevitable job that you're trying to get. So you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked On NHL. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen each and every day. Seth Topol and JD Young here as we switch gears to Alex Ovechkin and his continued chase of Wayne Gretzky. He is, I believe, it's 13 away from tying, 14 away from outright lead.
I think it's 13 from breaking the lead.
Okay, yeah. So it's 12 to tie, 13 for the outright lead. And we have some thoughts from Dan Holme of Locked On Capitals about a weekend hat trick for Alex Ovechkin and where he is trying to get to here as the season unfolds.
Wow, what a weekend for the Capitals. Capitals fans, hi, this is Dan Homey of Locked On Capitals. Well, the Caps showed absolutely no rust as they picked up decisive victories over the Penguins and the Oilers. But the biggest takeaway, of course, is Ovi now just 13 goals away from the great one, Wayne Gretzky, and he is not slowing down at all. He's scoring at the quickest pace he has in his entire career, 29 goals on the season. Other crazy accomplishments as he has scored 200 goals across 3 different decades. The first time an NHL player has done that. But quite a weekend for the Capitals, all things considered, as they are firing on all cylinders. They sit atop of the NHL with 84 points. I'll have much more on this for you later on Locked On Caps.
You know, and the funny thing, JD, is I think we're seeing just a really good example of the difference between last year's Capitals team and this year's Capitals team. And last year, you know, they're having a rough year, and they're really trying to just kind of force feed Ovechkin the puck to get him goals because they really don't have anything else going for him. This year, he's gotten a nice little energy jolt from one of the best teams in the league, and he doesn't have to do it all himself. There are plenty of other players that are capable of helping him out, which means that you can't just focus on Ovechkin when he's out there on the ice. You can't just say, okay, don't let him get to his spot and don't let him shoot the puck, because if you throw all your attention at him, then somebody else is going to score when they're out there on the ice. So I think it's a combination of, you know, some better help this year, which has given him a nice little boost, a confidence boost, some energy, vitality, all that stuff. And, you know, too, I think we're seeing that he is really starting to get like a second wind as he gets closer and closer to this milestone, that he wants to get it done here. And he just is showing that he still has plenty of tricks in his bag.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. They're still force feeding him the puck as often as they can, right? He played, I think, like 5 minutes on the power play, like in the third period this weekend. He's out there in every empty net situation. Like they're still force feeding him the puck, which is fine. But like you said, they have so many just better players. And I was very wrong on this team. I thought this team was just going to kind of flutter along until Ovechkin hits his goal, and they're going to hit the full reset. And they've managed all the moves they made this offseason have worked, right? Getting Chikrin, steal, like one of the best defensemen of the season, especially when it comes to goal scoring. You know, trading for Logan Thompson, kind of at his depressed value from Vegas, right? I know a lot of Vegas people are like, man, we probably traded the wrong goalie. Instead of trading Aiden Hill, you traded Logan Thompson. Logan Thompson has been stellar, should have been playing for Team Canada this year. But anyway, that's a different discussion. But it's great to see, right? And I mean, the scoring 200 goals in 3 different decades, just absolutely insane what this man is doing right now. Like my brain just cannot comprehend that. I saw a stat too that the Caps have also scored more goals this weekend than the Sharks have combined in the last 4 weeks. They had 15 goals this weekend, and I think the Sharks have had 14 goals in the past 4 weeks combined. Like, this team is an absolute juggernaut. And I think that's also what kind of helps them, is because they were talking about this on 32 Thoughts, is because this team is so good and so well balanced, and they've just been demolishing everyone in front of them, that they could do things like put Alex Ovechkin on the power play for 5 straight minutes and let him just keep taking one-timers because they're up 7-2, and you could just toy with your opponents right then and try to keep padding your stats. So it's great. It's just a matter of time when he does it. And it's crazy to me that this record, which felt unattainable, right? Like unattainable, is going to go down. It was very much like Barry Bonds hitting the home run record, like just this chase and this pursuit. And we're going to start to get like the cut-ins now whenever hopefully like, when the Caps go on the power play and you get the cut-ins, like we used to get with like Bonds and Sosa and McGuire when they were at bats. I know that summer was great when you would just like, okay, like you got to stop what you're doing just to see if he does it here. So and it's now it's going to be like 950. If he keeps playing like this, is he get like 950, 1,000? Is that like a potential possibility for him? The man's just putting up a bajillion goals right now.
I will say it is interesting as I look at his stats on ESPN, and ESPN projects out for the rest of the season at this pace. He is projected to score exactly 13 more goals this season. I think we feel pretty confident that he will eclipse that.
I think he will eclipse that. I think they're projecting April 2nd at home against the Blackhawks is kind of the projection of like when it happens. And I kind of want to take the under on that. I feel like it's going to happen sooner, especially if he keeps, again, the dude that you one of those guys, especially as an older guy, the 2 weeks off here for him, I'm sure he feels great right now and is probably going to get a chance to rack up some more goals here. So, yeah.
Well, who doesn't feel great is Trevor Zegras. Some discipline handed down and some discipline rescinded a little bit by the Department of Player Safety. We'll talk all of that out as we finish today's episode of Locked On NHL after this. Final segment of today's episode of Locked On NHL. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen each and every day. We are your team each and every day as well. Seth Sopal and JD Young now talking some discipline because let's start with Trevor Zegras. Zegras, it was announced that he was going to be having a hearing after a hit in the Ducks game against the Detroit Red Wings. He has now been suspended for 3 games. So as far as the suspensions go, I saw the hit and it does look like Zegras kind of chicken wings a little bit as he is skating past. And I forget the name of the Red Wings player that
Russalainen.
Thank you. But it does look like he sticks his elbow out. Or more of kind of his like the top of his arm, like towards the shoulder, is what actually ends up making the contact. And it's one of those. It seems pretty clear cut, and it's what you want the suspensions to do is to deter players from hits that are deemed to be reckless and dangerous, and I think we're definitely at that point with the Zegras hit. It was unnecessary. It was a dangerous play. Anytime you make contact with somebody that high up, you're just asking for trouble.
Yep. The very NHL thing of it is 3-game suspension on a play that there was no penalty called for. Yeah. But yeah, no, definitely worthy. And I get like, I'm very much like, I would rather be more aggressive with the suspensions to try to cut this stuff out because nobody wants to see guys getting hit in the head and getting guys knocked out. It's not good for the sport. It's like, it's right. We want to go see good players go do good things. Yeah. And I know Zegras has had a very up and down kind of past couple seasons, right? He's potentially on the trade block. Who knows what his future holds and if he maybe just needs a fresh start. But I don't think Zegras is like the most, like this is not kind of his MO is just to go out and like knock dudes out here. But again, like we want to try to hold players accountable. And even if it's just take that second to like think like, should I go for this dude's head who's maybe he's not looking where he's supposed to? And I know it's a fast game, but I just don't like headshots. They're not fun to see. They're not fun to cover and they're not fun to talk about.
And I'm watching the replay as we're talking here and clearly was, looking towards the boards after bouncing the puck off, and did not see Zegras coming at all. And Zegras just goes in and lets him have it, like right in the side of the face. Like we don't need that. So
Don't need that.
Yeah, but it's, you bring up a really good point in that. Why was there no penalty called?
I don't know, man. Refs, like the NHL refs, are sometimes they have some interesting decisions. Like, watching like
if I had a
the
gong,
Sharks,
I would.
Yeah, the Sharks Flames Sunday night. Ty Dellandrea gets like punched in the face, and he goes to the box for roughing on like a play, and it's like, why? Like, what did he do to like go? Like, he didn't do anything, and he gets put in his. I think it's just one of those situations they're trying to like calm everything down by just giving matching penalties. But it's like, yeah, like some of the decision making is just like, as Coach Ryan Warsofsky said, it's head scratching is when you see some of those things. So again, I know they're human; they're trying to do the best shot. It's a very fast game and stuff like that happens, but it's not like you don't have replay and you can't be like, oh man, this dude totally just like. And I mean, the last thing we want, I think, is more replay. But for pretty clear stuff like that, where it's like, like, why is this guy on the ground knocked out? Oh, this is why. So that's where you almost like, where the situation room maybe is just like, hey guys, like we need to like look at this here. So, but who knows?
Yeah, Todd McClellan said the ref's explanation for not calling the Zegras hit was that no one saw it and they can't make stuff up.
Again, you have your billion-dollar industry with cameras all around, and you have literally a situation room that's watching the game. Like, can we not just be like, hey guys, like there was literally like this, and it doesn't be everything. That's not like, I don't want like every little hooking penalty, but something like that where a guy like clearly gets injured. Like, we should have the ability to look at that and be like, look, this needs to get called. So One guy got a call. Look at my segue here. Got a call that he gets to play early. Your boy Ryan Hartman
was officially reduced. Ryan Hartman's suspension was officially reduced from 10 games to 8. Michael Russo tweeting out, Ryan Hartman will accept his reduction of suspension from 10 games to 8 and will not have the NHLPA further appeal this to an independent arbitrator on his behalf. So he is eligible to return on March 4th. Gary Bettman saying that it may have been a little bit of an extreme jump from his previous suspension to 10, but is hoping that 8 sends the message of, hey, don't do this again. I think the bigger
next time, 8 plus 7, so 15 next time if he does something again. Well, like, do we just keep adding 7?
I guess we'll see. I think the bigger thing is, obviously when you become a repeat offender, they fine you game checks as opposed to league days. So Hartman nearly, the 10 games, that was like $470K that he was fined, which is no small amount of money for somebody making $4 million a year.
That's a lot of Cam Fowler jerseys.
You could buy a store to make Cam Fowler jerseys with that much money.
But that lowers the value of the Cam Fowler jerseys if you're just pumping them out. It's like currency.
Yeah, that's a good point. So the thing is, you hope that at some point enough is enough, and that a player is going to learn, like, I can't do this stuff anymore. But this is now the fifth time that Ryan Hartman's been suspended, and he's been fined 7 other times. And some of said suspensions included he cross-checked Cole Perfetti in the face. He threw his stick on the ice in the direction of the officials. Full out Happy Gilmore. I didn't break the rake. I just placed it back in its natural habitat. So it's at some point you just are what you are. And the next time something like this happens, it's going to be like a 15-20 gamer. I think is the takeaway here.
Yeah, it feels like it's not if, it's when. It's just when it's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
With him. So Yeah, you have a reputation. You're a repeat offender because you repeatedly do the same thing over and over again. And
you repeatedly offend.
Yeah. I'm offended by his ability to. It's actually almost impressive the way he just continually does it. So I like Steve Dangle asking who it's next. It was a star player, a scrub player, a goalie, or a child with a lollipop, and who's going to be the next? Yeah.
Well, if he
give me the child with the lollipop. I don't know what FanDuel's odds are, but I just kind of want like full like mayhem in the palace type of thing with Ryan Hartman, like trying to steal a lollipop from some kid in the stands.
I mean,
maybe it's more the like how they do the like Rochambeau beforehand, like for the stick, and he's gonna win it, and the kid's not giving him the lollipop. He's just gonna jump in the stand.
Oh my gosh. If the Minnesota Wild end up playing the St. Louis Blues at any point, it'll be Jordan Binnington. That'll be the
oh man, that would be great.
Yeah. It might not be this year because let's say he does something this year, he's probably done for the year. Like you've got about 25 games left, so if he does anything in the next like 5 to 10 games, he's probably done for the year.
It's okay. The Wild are done anyway without Kaprizov, so might as well just get it over now. And then I
don't like your tone. So we are just
lollipop?
No. So that is what we have for today's episode of Locked On NHL. Once again, we appreciate everybody tuning in each and every day of the week. Make sure to subscribe if you have not already, so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. We've got new episodes for you every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.